This video is looking at factorizing monic quadratics. So for our success criteria for this video, we want to be able to identify what is a monic quadratic, find factors of C that add to B. It might not make a whole lot of sense right now, but it will later. And we want to be able to write that factorization as a binomial product. So don't worry too much if you don't understand a couple of those terms. We'll get there. First, let's look at what exactly is a monic quadratic. So a monic quadratic is simply a quadratic in the form, so remember our general form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. Monic just means that our value of a is 1. So if we'll have something x squared plus something x plus something. So in this case, it's going to be 1x squared, so I'll have an invisible 1. It'll just say x squared, and then you'll have a number in B and a number in C. If that number in front of the x squared is not a 1, so if it's a -1, it's not monic. If it's a 3, it's not monic. If it's a 7, it's not monic. If it's 0.325, not monic. It is only monic if it's a 1. Here's a few examples of quadratics. Let's decide if they are monic or not. Here, our x squared, we have that invisible 1 in front of it. So that is monic. Oops. Here, we have a negative in front of our x squared. So that means there's still that invisible 1 there, but it's a -1. So this is non-monic. Here, we have a 3. That's not a 1. It is non-monic. Here, we have a 42 as our first term, but there's no x squared with the 42. Our x squared is here. If we were to rewrite this in our standard ax squared plus bx plus c form, we'd have x squared minus 3x plus 42. We've got that 1 in front of the x squared. So that one is monic. Hopefully you now understand how to recognize a monic quadratic. Let's move on to factorizing them. So remember in our success criteria, it said we wanted to find factors of C that add to B. That might have been a bit confusing, but all this is talking about is our standard form of a quadratic. So ax squared plus bx plus c. This c and b are referring to this c and this b here. So the numbers of when we actually have a quadratic with the numbers in it. Just like this example here. So we have x squared plus 8x plus 15. So we want to find the pair of factors that multiply to give us 15, but that will add together to give us 8. So let's list the factors of 15. We've got 1 and 15, and we've got 3 and 5. They both have to have the same sign because they need to multiply to give a positive. So they either have to both be positive or both be negative, but they have to add to positive 8. So in all likelihood, they're both going to be positive. So do we have a pair here? So this is one pair, this is our other pair, that add to 8. Well, 3 and 5 add to 8. So 3 and 5 are the factors that we want. We now just write that. So our third success criteria was writing it as a binomial product. This just means it's a product of two things, basically. So we're writing it. Oh, I've lost my mouse. Where's my mouse? There it is. We're going to write it as x plus our first number in the factor, in brackets, and x plus our second number. Okay? That's a binomial product. It's two bracketed terms multiplied together, and it's the factorized form of our quadratic. If we want to check that we've got the right thing, we would re-expand. So we would do our FOIL, x times x, x squared, x times 5, 5x, 3 times x, 3x, 3 times 5, 15. And then we'd simplify that. 5x plus 3x is 8x plus 15. We get back to the original equation. Here's another example. We've got 2x squared minus 10x minus 28. Now you might be thinking, but there's a 2 there. It's not monic. That's okay. We don't have to panic. We just have to make sure that we can factorize that 2 out as a common factor to make it a monic quadratic, and then we can follow our process. So remember, we take that out, and we write what's left. So it'll be x squared minus 5x minus 14. And that is now the quadratic we'll be factorizing. So we want our factors of negative 14. Obviously, 1 is going to be negative, 1 will be positive, but we'll just write the numbers for now. So we'll have 1, 14 is our first pair, and 2 and 7 are going to be our second pair. Want a pair of these where 1's negative, 1's positive, that add to negative 5. Well, 7 minus 2 gives us 5, so we're going to do negative 2 and positive 7. Now we just have to write that in our bracketed term like we did over here. So we're going to have x plus 7 and x minus 2. It doesn't matter which order you write them in. But because we had this 2 out the front, we need to make sure that we remember to put that out the front as well. If we were to expand that, we'd get back to, first we'd get back to x squared minus 5x minus 14, and then we'd multiply that by 2 and get back to there. One more example here. So we've got x squared minus 8x plus 16. There's our invisible 1 out the front here, so it's monic. That's good. Our factors of 16. We're going to have 1 and 16, 2 and 8. We have 4 and 4. I think that's all of them. Now, they have to add to a negative number, okay, because we've got a negative here, which means to get multiplying to a positive, to multiply to a positive, we need them both to be the same sign. So they're both going to be negative. Okay, so we're going to have negative 1, negative 16, negative 2, negative 8, negative 4, negative 4. In this case, the ones that are going to add to give us 8 are 4 and 4. So we would have x minus 4 and x minus 4. Because these are the same, that means we've got a perfect square. So we can write that as x minus 4 squared. Now here's 2 for you to have a go. So pause the video and we'll be back in a second with the answers. There's your answers. So now we can identify what a monic quadratic is. We can find our factors of C that add together to give us our B, and we can write that factorization as a binomial product. Congrats! You can now factorize monic quadratics.